All right, I want to welcome everyone back. We're going to start with agenda item 1, enhancing wildfire safety on county roads. Let me ask if there's a staff presentation on this item.
Holly, are you going to come up and give some opening remarks? Chief Meacham is here to answer any questions, but there is no formal presentation. But this board item was brought forward by District 5 and District 2, so they may have some opening comments. Thank you.
All right, let's go to the two supervisors who brought this item forward and ask if they'd like to make any introductory comments on this item.
Before the supervisors begin, we had one request to speak on this item, so if that individual could dial into the conference line now using the instructions provided to you, you will be muted until it is your turn to speak. Again, this is for item 1. Thank you.
I could speak to the item. That's okay with the chair while you're waiting.
Yeah, that'd be great. We'll go Supervisor Desmond and Supervisor Anderson. And then we'll see if we have any questions for staff.
And well, basically, this is enhancing wildfire safety on our county roads, and this is particularly in concern for evacuation routes and county roads that are in high or very high fire severity zones. The state actually allows up to 20 feet of clearing on either side of the road. And maybe Chief Meacham can answer the, or either tell me I'm right or wrong here, but what the, right now I think we're clearing to 10 feet on either side of the road, but which is kind of the standard, but we are allowed in certain circumstances to go up to 20 feet. So what this board letter is doing is making the recommendation or asking staff to come back with, or Chief Meacham to come back with, what roads, could we use this on, to try to reduce the burnover if there's a fire, of fire crossing the road, or the burnover rate, and to come back with roads to identify as prime areas for this 20 feet of clearing, particularly where, for evacuation routes and things like that, and then to come back with us with the proposed plan for that clearing on those areas that could benefit from this. This is all for fire safety and evacuations, and that's the main intent of the board letter. My understanding, well, along with Supervisor Anderson, who also has the unincorporated area. So if you want to.
Yeah, let me ask, this was brought forward by you and Supervisor Anderson. Ask Supervisor Anderson if he has any comments on the item.
Well, I just want to thank Supervisor Desmond for coming up with this. And, we all are horribly impacted by fire. And this is very, very helpful moving forward in fire protection. So I urge and I vote for my colleagues.
All right. With that, let's see if our public speaker is on the line, and then we can see if there's any board comments or any questions for the fire chief.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Yes, we have one individual who has requested to address the board on this item, and also note that we have one e-comment on this item. The individual caller will have 2 minutes to address the board, and I will ask you to please press *6 to unmute your phone, and please state your name for the audio record.
8569, you may proceed. 8569.
Can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, good. Chair Fletcher, members of the board, good afternoon. Thank you for taking my comment. My name is Frank Landis, and I'm the Conservation Chair for the San Diego chapter of the California Native Plant Society. Like everyone here, CNPS values human safety during wildfires. Unfortunately, simply clearing vegetation as has been done for a century, and it has obviously not solved the problem. The reason is that there are over 2,700 different wild plant species in San Diego County, and they're not all fuel. Clearing along roads has a definite purpose. It stops sparks from igniting highly flammable grasses and weeds. Problem is, once you clear an area, you need to clear it every single year, or the buildup of dead thatch is more ignitable than if you'd left it in shrubs or especially trees. Haphazard clearance has been the norm for decades, and unfortunately it's made us less safe rather than more. Clearing 20 feet won't necessarily stop 50-foot flames from blowing across the road in places where the road runs, in roads where the roads run perpendicular to the fires. But thoughtless tree cutting and shrub removal will make roads more prone to slides, sides more covered to weeds, and the area less home to animals. And ironically, it'll increase the risk for catching sparks and starting fires. I would ask instead for an accounting. How much would it cost for the county to clear the edges that have already been cleared? How much would it cost to find where sensitive plant species live next to roads so that these areas can be avoided? How much would it cost to pay workers and supervisors a living wage so that they have some incentive to pay attention, do a good job, respect property lines, and cut only weeds and necessary fire breaks? These are the things we need. Haphazard clearance, ignoring property lines, and needless destruction of people's fire-resistant landscapes are problems that both the CMPS and the county deal with every single year. These failures do not make us safer, but simply breed conflict. I'd recommend instead that the county staff come back with recommendations for the most cost-effective ways the county can make its residents safe from wildfires while preserving San Diego's unique trove of native species and sequestering carbon. Everyone will be able to get on board with that. Thank you for taking my comments.
Thank you. And that concludes public testimony on this item, Chair Fletcher.
Thank you. I see Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Hi, thank you so much. First of all, I just want to thank my colleagues for bringing this forward, because the necessity of protecting human life and property from wildfire is paramount. I also want to make sure that roadside fire breaks are effective and we avoid unnecessary habitat impacts, particularly to listed species, watercourses, and woodlands. My request, therefore, to staff is that you additionally evaluate the environmental impacts of increasing the roadway clearance with particular attention to the following issues. One is maintaining roadside fire breaks to prevent colonization and spread of non-native invasive and flammable plant weeds. Second is retaining trees trimmed to reduce ladder fuels. Third is retaining living trees. And fourth, retaining large old monarch shrubs like manzanitas and scrub oaks. And then fifth is retaining vegetation in watercourses to protect water quality. So I think the intent of my suggestions, my request to staff, is to ensure that as we protect our communities from wildfires, we're doing so in a way that is habitat sensitive and particularly sensitive to listed plant and animal species. Thank you.
Go back to Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The speaker had noticed, we aren't asking for haphazard clearance. We're asking for county staff and our fire to come back with a plan to where this could, this additional clearing might be more beneficial, and certainly to take under consideration the native, endangered, and habitat under consideration. There is an item D in the recommendation is identify the cost per mile cost to perform the clearing. So he was asking for cost benefit. And then E is to determine the frequency of the proposed vegetation clearing. So I would ask staff to incorporate the comments that Supervisor Lawson-Remer had put in there concerning consideration of the environment, and I'm sure that would be for endangered species, and making sure that we just aren't clearing for clearing's sake, but for the to try to be safe and be environmentally friendly at the same time. So we're asking them to come back with a plan, and that we would see that plan before approval. So I'll make a motion to approve item 1.
Thank you.
Second.
And Supervisor, just so I'm clear, you're okay if a part of that plan to come back encapsulates some of the items that Supervisor Lawson-Remer outlined?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Supervisor Lawson-Remer, that work for you?
That's great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right. Any other comments? We have a motion by Supervisor Desmond, a second by Supervisor Anderson to approve the recommendations in agenda item 1, adding the considerations of environmental concerns to the analysis that will be done. With that, I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson?
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
Thank you. We'll now go to agenda item 3. This is probation, establishing the youth transition camps. I spoke to this item on consent. I got confused with items 2 and 4. I still think this is a really good idea, even though it wasn't approved on consent. Let me ask staff if they have any comments they would like to make on this item, and then we'll see if we have any public speakers.
Chair Fletcher and members of the board, as the chair mentioned during his opening comments, probation has been transforming over the past several years. Through their work with Georgetown University's Center for Juvenile Justice, probation has been implementing national best practices to support positive outcomes for both the youth involved in the juvenile justice system and the dedicated staff and officers who work in probation. One of the most important and long-lasting efforts we've undertaken is building a new therapeutic, rehabilitative youth campus in Kearney Mesa. As many members of the board have seen firsthand, Phase 1 of the campus is a new urban camp on our Kearney Mesa site for youth who've been committed by the court to a specific sentence of incarceration. Phase 1 is a 96-bed therapeutic trauma-informed facility. All of our efforts on this new campus are based in the priority to build a safe and supported living environment where youth will attend school, receive services, establish relationships, and learn skills that will help when they transition out of detention and back into our community. In Phase 1, there will be 8 12-bed housing units, a visiting center where parents, family members, and other supportive adults can stay connected with the youth. Phase 1 also includes a standalone school and a career technical education center for media arts, the trades, information technology, as well as a culinary arts kitchen. Indoor and outdoor recreation areas for youth are prominent at the site, including plenty of grass and trees. In fact, 30% of the entire campus is designated outdoor space, and we will have a 3,800 square foot garden complete with fruit trees and vegetables. On this new campus will be multiple buildings and functions that are intended to support both Phase 1 and the upcoming proposed Phase 2 of the project, including space for medical facilities, laundry, and maintenance. The projected occupancy date for Phase 1 is November of this year. The proposed Phase 2 of this campus is projected to include short-term housing for 72 youth who have been arrested but not yet gone through the court process. Phase 2, if approved by your board, will include 6 12-bed living units, a school, and recreation space. This phase will also include a 15,000 square foot office space to replace the current juvenile probation center, bringing probation administration closer to the youth we serve. Phase 2 is currently in the planning stages and is included in the capital improvements needs assessment update that is before your board today. The naming of the campus in its entirety, Youth Transition Campus, reflects exactly what we want these facilities to represent and to be: a temporary, safe, and therapeutic environment where youth are provided tools and skills to keep them out of the criminal justice system. The request is to adopt a resolution to establish the Youth Transition Campus. Creating the name of the new facility is a key part of probation's philosophical shift to positive youth development. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Thank you for those, Holly. Let me ask the clerk if there's any requests to speak on this item.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We had one request to speak on this item in favor. We do not see that individual dialed into the conference line at this time. We also received one e-comment on this item.
All right, thank you. I think it's a great idea. I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion by myself, second by Vice Chair Vargas. Any comments or questions from my colleagues? Wes, clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson?
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We'll next move to agenda item 8, a board letter from the sheriff requesting ratification of approval of an agreement with the Lucky Duck Foundation. I've been involved tangentially in this effort and project, and I think it's a good example of a public-private partnership of utilization of individuals who are in custody to try and do a societal good and help meet the need of the unsheltered. Let me, before we begin, ask if there's any representative from the Sheriff's Department that would like to weigh in on this item, given it was brought forward by our sheriff.
Chair Fletcher, we do have Commander Will Brown on the line and Keith Spears from Contracts with the Sheriff's Department.
Okay. If they would like to make any comments, they don't necessarily have to, but I want to extend the offer.
We're not seeing them on the line. I would just comment that the Sheriff's Department partnered with this foundation. It is full cost recovery, and they had originally planned on about $250,000 worth of meals provided to unsheltered individuals. They quickly exceeded that amount, and so they're bringing this to the board today with a little over $700,000 planned to assist in continuing to create meals for unsheltered individuals.
All right. Let me ask the clerk if there's any requests for speakers on this item.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Yes, there was one request to speak in favor of this item, and the individual has just dialed into the conference line now, so we will go ahead and call up that individual. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board, and we'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record. And you'll need to press *6 to unmute your line.
1149, you may proceed.
Hey, this is Drew Moser. Can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Hey, Drew Moser, Executive Director of the Lucky Duck Foundation, and really just want to thank the county for their participation and support of this program, and thank Supervisor Fletcher for his support, as well as Commander Brown and Sheriff Gore and the rest of the Sheriff's Department. This program was started in response to COVID to provide nourishment and hydration to folks living on shelter when so many of the community and faith-based feedings went away, first and foremost, but secondarily to use those meals and equip outreach workers with a powerful tool to build trust and rapport to ultimately connect folks to the resources that exist and build that relationship so they can ultimately help folks end their homelessness. So we started by feeding 400 people per day. We're up to a little over 1,000 people per day that we feed now, and it's really thanks to the partnership with the county and about 30 or so different outreach teams that make this program possible. So really here just to say thanks and advocate that you support it, as we believe strongly in this program. We've distributed over 450,000 meals to date and well on our way to expanding that and reaching even more people. So again, thank you and appreciate your support.
Thank you. And that concludes public testimony on this item, Chair Fletcher.
Thank you, Drew, and thank you to the Lucky Duck Foundation for all of your work. Happy to make a motion to approve this item. Is there a second?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion by myself, a second by Supervisor Anderson. Any comments from any of my colleagues? Ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson?
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
Now going to move to agenda item 10, a notice public hearing fiscal year 21-22 annual plan. Let me ask staff if they have any comments or a presentation to make on this item.
Mr. Chairman, yes, we do. They're rushing down to the microphone. Give them 1 minute, please. Thank you.
While they're rushing down to the microphones, any members of the public that have requested to speak on this item, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions provided to you. You will be muted until it is your turn to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Fletcher and members of the board. I'm here today with Kelly Salmons, Chief of Agency Operations, to request your approval of the fiscal year 21-22 draft annual plan for the County of San Diego's federal entitlement programs. The Health and Human Services Agency, Housing and Community Development Services, administers 4 federal entitlement programs: the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, Home Investments Partnership, HOME, Emergency Solutions Grant, ESG, and Housing Opportunities for Persons with HIV/AIDS and their Families, HOPWA program. These programs provide funding for community improvement projects for the revitalization of lower-income communities, development of affordable housing for low-income and special needs persons, homeless assistance programs, and projects providing housing and associated services for persons living with HIV/AIDS and their families. Additionally, we are also asking the board for approval to allocate CDBG coronavirus funds, which include a reallocation of previously allocated funding. As a recipient of U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development entitlement grant funding, the County of San Diego must develop a 5-year consolidated plan, which identifies needs within low to moderate income communities and outlines how the county will address those needs over the next 5 years. The annual plan is a 1-year subcomponent of the consolidated plan and identifies specific projects to be funded through the entitlement programs during the upcoming fiscal year. The fiscal year 21-22 annual plan represents the second year of the 2024 consolidated plan, which was previously approved in April 2020. A public comment period culminating with a public hearing, must be held to allow the public to comment on the proposed use of funds. Contingent upon your approval and HUD's announcement of final allocations, the draft plan will be finalized and submitted to HUD. No public comments have been received prior to today's hearing. The county made every effort to broaden public participation in the development of this plan, including publishing the public notices in 5 local newspapers: San Diego Union Tribune, Voice and Viewpoint of San Diego, El Latino, and Vietnamese and Tagalog language newspapers. Additionally, public notices were placed on the HCDS website. These notices informed the public of the release of the draft annual plan and provided a summary of the plan's recommendations. Prior to the development of this year's annual plan, your board approved the 5-year consolidated plan in April 2020. During the development of the consolidated plan, the county hosted 10 community outreach events throughout the county and administered an online survey regarding community needs. Additionally, as required by HUD, the county held a public hearing on October 13, 2020, to solicit community input in the development of the annual plan strategy. I will now turn it over to Kelly for a brief summary of the programs covered in the plan.
Thank you. The CDBG program provides annual grants on a formula basis to states, cities, and counties to develop viable urban communities by providing decent housing and a suitable living environment, and by expanding economic opportunities, principally for low and moderate income persons. It's anticipated that the fiscal year 21-2022 CDBG allocation will total just over $4.2 million. The county's CDBG jurisdiction is the urban county, which is composed of the county's unincorporated areas and the 6 participating cities of Coronado, Del Mar, Imperial Beach, Lemon Grove, Poway, and Solana Beach. Each of the previously mentioned cities selects projects to be carried out in their city and get approval from their city council. The total funding allocated to these cities is approximately $500,000. The county administers the remaining $3.7 million throughout the unincorporated areas, as well as several projects that serve the entire urban county. As shown on this slide, recommended projects identified in the plan include 5 housing programs and 2 parks projects. Additionally, as shown on this slide, 7 ADA and community improvement projects are also being recommended. And finally, 5 community and public service programs are being recommended in today's plan. Recent CDBG-funded projects include the Live Well San Diego Home Repair Program, which last year provided 53 low-income homeowners and mobile homeowners homeowner improvements that support aging in place and other necessary rehabilitation. Displayed on the screen in the blue are the eligible areas for the home repair program. CDBG coronavirus funds have been awarded to the county to be used for CDBG-eligible activities that prevent, prepare, and respond to the coronavirus pandemic. It's anticipated that the combined allocation for CDBG coronavirus funding will total just over $6.8 million. Recommended projects identified in the plan this year include 2 housing-related programs, 2 food distribution programs, and 4 vocational training, educational, and employment placement programs. The Home Investment Partnerships Program provides funding for the creation of affordable housing opportunities for low-income and special needs persons. Anticipated home program funding for fiscal year 21-22 totals just over $3.2 million. The home program serves the Home Consortium, which includes the urban county, plus 6 additional cities: Carlsbad, Encinitas, La Mesa, San Marcos, Santee, and Vista. It is recommended that the home program funds continue to be used to support the county's first-time home buyer program, rental assistance programs for vulnerable populations, and the development of much-needed affordable housing for low-income individuals. Recent home-funded projects include the down payment and closing cost assistance for first-time home buyers program, which last year provided low-interest loans to 15 low-income families, as well as the development of 80 units of affordable housing to serve low-income seniors in Vista. The ESG program provides services for persons experiencing homelessness and those at risk of homelessness in the urban county jurisdiction. Anticipated funding for the ESG program totals approximately $365,000. The draft plan recommends the funding of homeless prevention, rapid rehousing, and emergency shelter activities to be administered through the contracted service providers. To date, fiscal year 2021 ESG funds have served over 380 individuals in rapid rehousing. In addition to the previously mentioned federal entitlement programs, the county will apply for an estimated $500,000 through the state's ESG program. Similar to the federal ESG, state ESG funds serve homeless and those at risk of homelessness throughout the San Diego region through homeless prevention, rapid rehousing, emergency shelter, and street outreach activities. The state ESG jurisdiction includes the entire county of San Diego. To date, fiscal year 1920 state ESG funds have provided assistance to 521 individuals through rapid rehousing and emergency shelter programs. Finally, the County of San Diego administers the Housing Opportunities for Persons with HIV or AIDS, or HOPWA. HOPWA provides funding for housing and housing-related services shown on this slide for persons living with HIV/AIDS and their families throughout the entire County of San Diego. The region's HOPWA allocation is anticipated to be approximately $4.6 million. Recent HOPWA projects have provided eligible services to over 4,500 households. After the posting of today's board letter, HUD released the final allocations for fiscal year 21-22, the amounts which are shown here on this slide and total approximately $13.5 million. I will now turn it back to David.
In addition to requesting approval of the fiscal year 21-22 draft annual plan for submission to HUD, the requested actions before you today are to authorize HHSA to reallocate available prior year's entitlement funding and current year balances as necessary throughout the year, authorize HHSA to reallocate previously awarded CDBG coronavirus funds to supplement the fiscal year 2019-20 CDBG coronavirus program, authorize HHSA to apply for and accept an estimated $500,000 in State of California ESG funds for fiscal year 21-22, and authorize HHSA to adjust the amount of funding to projects identified in the draft plan to reflect final funding allocations once released by HUD. This concludes our presentation. I'm glad to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, David, and thank you to your team for the presentation. Let me ask the clerk if there's any requests for public comment on this item.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Yes, there's one request to speak on this item, and that individual has dialed into the conference line, so we'll go ahead and identify that caller. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board, and we'll ask that you please state your name for the audio record. You'll need to press *6 to unmute your phone.
Yes, 2701. You may proceed.
Good afternoon. This is Kelly Douglas. I'm the president and CEO of Voices for Children. We operate the court-appointed special advocate program for children in foster care in San Diego County. We're currently supporting almost 1,000 CASA volunteers, and through our CASA volunteers and staff, we're providing advocacy to almost 2,000 children. And I wanted to call in today to extend our sincere thanks and appreciation to the County of San Diego and the Board of Supervisors for your generous support and your consideration of our CDBG requests this year. Now more than ever, the kids that we serve need someone who's in their corner and who can ensure that their voices are heard and their needs are met. And for many children in foster care, that person is their CASA. We really value our strong relationship with the juvenile court, with the county, and with our many community partners. Your support truly is difference-making for the most vulnerable children here in San Diego. So thanks again from Voices for Children.
Thank you. And that concludes public testimony on this item, Chair Fletcher.
Thank you, and thank you to Voices for Children for your support on this item. Let me ask my colleagues if they have any questions for staff or comments. All right, seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve the staff recommendations in agenda item 10. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion by myself, a second by Vice Chair Vargas. Ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson?
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond,
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas,
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
Next, we'll move to agenda item 15, literacy campaign to increase access to books. This is an item brought forward by Vice Chair Vargas. Let me ask if Vice Chair Vargas, if you'd like to make some comments on this item.
Yes, thank you, Chair Fletcher. I am really, the pandemic and many of the qualities have really hit our community, really have brought to light specifically around remote learning and its impacts on our students, a lot of different issues, right? And while there are already equity issues that are impacting our students at achievement levels from lack of access to technology, home learning environment, and students' computer skills, these issues were really exacerbated by remote learning. And so literacy challenges were magnified, and students' development of essential reading skills throughout communities in District 1 were severely impacted. Today, we have an opportunity to address these gaps in literacy and amplify the need for reading, comprehension, and writing in our low-income communities and communities of color. Studies show that if we can enhance child's access to reading materials and books at home, they will have better opportunities for long-term learning success. However, the reality is that there are vast disparities in our disadvantaged communities where many students do not have sufficient access to age-appropriate books at home, causing them to fall behind. As many of you know, I was a trustee at Southwestern College for over 7 years, and it really, one of the biggest challenges that we had is that many of our students, it takes about 6 years to transfer from a community college to a four-year university. And a lot of that is the requirements related to language and literacy. And so for those reasons, I am really proud to introduce this literacy campaign with a special focus on little libraries. I really want to provide access to books to our communities most in need. It is my goal that this campaign helps boost reading, comprehension, and writing skills, thus providing more opportunities for our youth. I think today you saw Ms. Flores from the Girl Scouts. I had a kickoff last week with them, and we did a reading of a beautiful poem. And really what I want to do is find opportunities for us, particularly with these little libraries in our small neighborhood book exchange structures that can be placed throughout communities that is going to allow students and residents to access books closer to home. Residents can borrow books as they like and return them afterwards as an honor basis system and share a book as well. The motto being take a book and share a book. A volunteer steward is usually going to be assigned to look after a particular neighborhood, this little library, engaging and building communities in the process. Our county libraries have been fantastic in making sure that public has, they provide programs and services and readings, but we want to make sure that we're expanding these opportunities. And so physical neighborhood approach with access to books is needed to provide an additional positive impact on students who have difficulty accessing transportation, face financial difficulties, or are unable to access the library or bookstores, and who are impacted by connectivity issues. And so the Little Free Library nonprofit organization has actually a GIS mapping system that boosts over 50,000 neighborhood libraries across the nation. And so one of the things that we found is that the map shows that in San Diego County, book exchanges using the Little Free Library model, we only have 4 little libraries in District 1. So think about it, in a population of 650,000 or so people, we only have 4 little libraries, and this would consider us a book desert. So this initiative today is going to address this disparity seen in disadvantaged communities by promoting and encouraging reading from home and creating more access to literature. The initiative also brings on a sense of pride and ownership to care of the proposed little libraries in their neighborhoods and communities. And our San Diego County Library, in partnership with the San Diego Council of Literacy and other public library jurisdictions in the region, and our friends of library groups, is ready to implement and work with several nonprofits and volunteer groups with no cost to our general fund or additional staff years. And so I look forward to helping our students grow their literacy abilities. I'm very excited about the partnerships and positive community building impact that I know our literacy campaign and our little libraries will have. I strongly urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair Vargas.
Probably make a motion to support.
I was going to say, that sounded like a motion.
Oh, sorry.
Which I am happy to second. Sounds like a wonderful.
Thank you.
Let me ask the clerk if we have any requests for public comment on this item.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Yes, we have 6 individuals who have requested to address the board on this item, and we received 13 e-comments on this item. Any of the individuals that requested to speak on item 15, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. We will be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number. You'll hear notification that your call has been unmuted. You will then need to press *6 to unmute your phone. Each caller will be asked to state their name for the audio record, and you'll have 2 minutes to address the board. You'll hear the sound when your time is up, so please conclude your comments at that time. I would remind the public speakers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. Erin, if you could please identify the first caller.
Thank you. Our first caller is 3849. 3849.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi, this is Leslie Mathland, County Librarian for 7 years, proud SEIU 221 member and Support Services Chair. Supervisor Vargas, thank you for bringing forth such an important literacy initiative. Little libraries sounds like a beautiful idea to extend services to our most underserved areas. Librarians have a few concerns about equity, and we hope that you will include these ideas in the final proposal. Material sourcing. Please stock these with new items. Library discards are usually worn, dirty, or falling apart. Disenfranchised San Diego residents deserve new, shiny items to enjoy and call their own. Wi-Fi. Rolling out little libraries without Wi-Fi signal would be a huge disservice to the communities little libraries would serve. We understand that adding Wi-Fi would involve a larger conversation. Please consider listening to boots-on-the-ground librarians who see and hear the public's needs every day. Staffing. San Diego County libraries have not been able to depend on volunteers for the past year. Rolling out a new volunteer-driven initiative when branches are understaffed and unable to expand services to night hours or weekends, just so people can return their overdue items, seems a little out of touch. Staff our buildings, value our work and contribution to COVID-19 T3 response, and allow our voice at the table when planning little libraries. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 9364. 9364. Please press *6.
Thank you. This is Michelle Krug. I'm in strong support of Supervisor Vargas's suggestion for the program. I've been a long time literacy volunteer, originally in Brooklyn, New York, and then for about 12 years here in San Diego. The libraries were always my safe space growing up, and I would love to, actually, I'm offering to help facilitate any of these in Paradise Hills. And thank you for bringing this to the attention throughout the county. I think it's an amazing idea. And I think there'll be a lot of people that will be willing to help volunteer. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes public testimony on this item, Chair Fletcher.
Thank you very much. Let me ask my colleagues if they have any comments on this item. Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Yeah, I just want to thank Vice Chair Vargas for bringing this forward. I think it's really fantastic. I know growing up, one of my safe spaces was absolutely the library, and you know, it's just such an important place to encourage young people to grow and be able to touch and feel hard copy books. And I also want to acknowledge the input of one of the commenters around Wi-Fi, and we'll be looking forward to working on that in the future and looking on how we tackle our larger systemic issues around digital connectivity throughout the county. So thank you again, Vice Chair Vargas, and I'll be excited to support this.
Thank you. We have a motion by Vice Chair Vargas, a second by myself. Seeing no further comments, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson?
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
All right, we will move to agenda item 21, amplifying systems of support for youth career readiness and employment. This is an item that's been brought forward together with Supervisors Vargas and Lawson Reamer. Let me ask them if they have any introductory comments they would like to make on this item.
Sure, happy to. Thank you again. And it's been an honor to introduce this item with Vice Chair Vargas, because the county has provided support for renters and small businesses and vulnerable communities during COVID. And now we can add San Diego County's youth to the list of people who need help during this pandemic. Growing up in San Diego, I was fortunate to have opportunities to grow my career, even as a teenager. I was a kid who cared more about soccer and surfing than internships, but I was encouraged by the adults around me to develop professional skills and gain work experience. And being around those mentors helped me flourish as a young person. But if I were growing up today in isolation during a global pandemic, I don't know if I would be so lucky. I know a lot of you are struggling with this right now. So Vice Chair Vargas and I are calling for the creation of a Youth Environment and Recreation Corps. At a time when our lives are grounded to a halt, this Youth Corps will help young people jumpstart their careers. Anyone from a low-income family between the ages of 16 and 24 will be eligible. It will provide paid employment opportunities within county departments. And this is important because if we want people to get ahead, we have to pay them for their work. There's a big need for programs like this. In San Diego County, there are 38,000 individuals that are considered opportunity youth, young people who are not in school and not working. Opportunity youth are spread across the region, with large numbers in Chula Vista, Escondido, Fallbrook, Lemon Grove, National City, and Vista. Youth Corps members will receive training, develop knowledge and skills, and gain work experience, with a focus on preparing them for careers in the growing green economy. This item will direct county staff to report back within 90 days with a full proposal that we can put into action. We are also recommending in this action that county staff identify ways to partner with youth career organizations to amplify their existing efforts. Vice Chair Vargas and I would like to urge your support. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for that. Let me ask the clerk if there's any request for public comment.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Yes, we have 38 individuals who have requested to address the board on this item. Any members of the public that have requested to speak on item 21, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions provided to you. Also note for the record that we received 150 e-comments on this item. We will be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number. You will hear a notification that your call has been unmuted. You will then need to press *6 to unmute your phone. Each caller will be asked to state their name for the audio record, and you will have 2 minutes to address the board. You'll hear the sound when your time is up, so please conclude your comments at that time. And I would remind the public speakers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. Erin, if you could please identify the first caller.
Thank you. Our first caller is 7498. 7498. Please press *6 to unmute yourself. Oh, 7498 appears to have been disconnected, so we'll come back to you if you want to rejoin the Zoom meeting. Our next caller is 7749. 7749.
Hi there. My name is Connor Franklin Ray. I am a resident of District 2, and I'm also a member of Sunrise Movement San Diego, which is a member of the San Diego Green New Deal Alliance, calling in support of this item today. You know, as a youth organization, we assert that every youth in our region deserves the opportunity to thrive by amplifying systems in our country, or county, excuse me, that we can make sure reach youth across the region. Pandemic has drastically impacted young adults. They were more likely to have part-time jobs and or to be laid off at the beginning of this pandemic due to jobs in retail, tourism, and food sector. So this is an investment with long-term gain by providing meaningful workforce experience to our youth, that they are getting the skills needed to pursue other careers or pathway within the county. Research confirms that quality mentoring relationships have powerful positive effects on young people in a variety of personal, academic, and professional situations. Ultimately, mentoring connects young people to personal growth and development and social and economic opportunity. Furthermore, connecting the young people of this county to our beautiful environment will foster a new generation of caretakers to ensure both current and future environmental issues will be addressed with the urgency and scale that they require if our generation is to survive and thrive into the coming decades. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 7498. 7498.
Good afternoon, supervisors. My name is Melissa Elder, and I'm also a volunteer with the Sunrise Movement San Diego, living in Chair Fletcher's district, calling to express support for item 21. Not only do they have part of their youth stripped away, agonizing over and trying to fight the pending climate crisis we know we are facing, and the ability to even have a future, this pandemic has also drastically impacted young adults, as they were more likely to have part-time jobs or first to be laid off during this pandemic due to their jobs in retail or the food sector. And by providing meaningful workforce experience, the youth can get the skills needed in order to pursue other careers and have an opportunity to connect with green spaces. In looking at how important mentoring and having a connection with some kind of meaningful work experience, it's so important to offer these experiences and the economic opportunity for the youth. I personally remember how critical it was for me to have mentors throughout those critical ages. I owe so much to those mentors and those work experiences, which has helped me develop into the person I am today. So I urge you to please support 21 to give our youth that have been disenfranchised during this time an opportunity to connect with the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 1939.
1939. Oprima asterisco 6 para poder hablar.
One nine three nine.
1939. Puede oprimir asterisco 6 para poder hablar.
And we will come back to you if we don't hear from you when your number is called.
Regresamos con usted después de otras llamadas.
Our next speaker is 4082. 4082.
Hi, my name is Seska, and I live in Hillcrest, and I'm a volunteer of the Sunrise Movement. Growing up, my parents told me stories about how they were so poor that they had to drop out of school to get a job and provide basic things like food for the rest of the family. Unfortunately, this is the reality for some youth today who have to work and go to school to help pay the bills or to keep a roof over their head. And I'm in support of this measure to provide youth with the skills and resources to escape the cycle of poverty and empower them with good paying jobs in the future so that they can have a livable future. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 9358. 9358.
Hello, my name is Angelina Corsani with the Center on Policy Initiatives and the Invest in San Diego Families Coalition. I'm here today to urge the board to vote in support of this proposal to amplify systems of youth career readiness and employment and establish a youth environment and recreation core program. By creating opportunities for training and jobs in the green economy for youth and focusing on youth from communities that have been historically excluded from equal opportunity, we are ensuring young people are able to successfully build towards long-term careers, creating a stronger future economy, and ensuring that all communities benefit. Young workers are heavily represented in industries that have been most impacted by COVID shutdowns and have seen disproportionate job loss as a result. Young people now and for the next few years will be attempting to enter or re-enter an unprecedented job market. Without an intentional investment in opportunities to provide these young people with real training and employment experience, the impacts of the COVID recession on our youth could have detrimental long-term impacts on our region's future workforce. Investments in training and employment opportunities for youth are critical as our region begins to recover from the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 0805. 0805. 0805, please press star 6 to unmute yourself.
Hi, my name is Vanessa. I'm a member of ACE and the Invest in San Diego Families Coalition. I'm calling to urge the Board of Supervisors to support Supervisor Lawson Reamer's board initiative, Amplifying Systems of Support for Youth Career Readiness and Employment, taking into account how this pandemic has disproportionately impacted opportunities for young people. So access to green spaces improves both physical and mental wellness in youth while also allowing them to build a deeper connection to their community. Youth disconnection rate rises sharply as youth leave high school and struggle to find work or to enroll in/afford higher education. In order to reduce disconnection rates, it's critical that we support young people with more opportunities during this transition. Lastly, this is an investment with a long-term gain. By providing meaningful workforce experience, our youth are getting the skills needed to pursue other careers or a pathway within the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 9792. 9792. Please press star 6 to unmute yourself. And again, if we don't hear from you when your number is called, we will come back to you. Our next speaker is 0396. 0396.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Karina Gonzalez, and I'm with Hammond Climate Solutions. Today, I urge you all to support Supervisor Lawson Reamer's initiative that would create new opportunities for youth across the region. There are currently an estimated 3,800 opportunity youth in San Diego. These youth between the ages of 16 and 24 are not in school or working. Providing these students with meaningful work experience and viable pathways to success will ensure that they thrive. Furthermore, I urge you to consider the impact that the pandemic has had on our youth in the county, many who have lost their jobs this past year. As part of our strategy to recover from COVID, we must ensure that our youth are not left out. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 9713. 9713.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Hello. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Eduardo, and I'm a member of ACE and Invest in San Diego Families Coalition. I'm calling to urge the Board of Supervisors to support Supervisor Lawson Reamer's board initiative to amplify systems of support for youth career readiness and to give them an opportunity to be competitive in this upcoming changing landscape. So as the previous caller stated, I'm sure that many other callers have stated that in order to invest in our youth and invest in people of color and invest in equity, we must invest in making sure that our upcoming professionals are competitive and able to be in green spaces. So thank you for your time and please support this initiative.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 5362. 5362.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Judith Howell, and I'm a resident of District 3. I stand with the Invest in San Diego Families Coalition and urge the Board of Supervisors to support Supervisor Lawson Reamer's board letter that will amplify systems of support for youth career readiness and employment that will take into account how this pandemic has disproportionately impacted opportunities for young people. In their 2020 report, San Diego Workforce Partnership identified 38,000 opportunity youth. Those are youth between the ages of 16 through 24 who are not in school and not working. It is essential that we create pathways for our most vulnerable students so they can thrive in our region. This is an investment with a long-term gain. By providing meaningful workforce experience, our youth are getting the skills needed to pursue other careers as a pathway within the county. In our recovery from COVID, we must ensure that we're providing our young people with opportunities for success. Support Supervisor Lawson Reamer's board letter to amplify and invest in systems of support for youth career readiness and employment. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 8091. 8091.
Hello, board members. My name is Victoria Morales. I live in District 5. I'm with Climate Action Campaign, which is a member of the San Diego Green New Deal Alliance. Every youth in our region deserves the opportunity to thrive. By amplifying systems in our county, we can make sure we reach youth across the region. In their 2020 report, San Diego Workforce Partnership identified 38,000 opportunity youth. Those youth are between the ages of 16 and 24, which are not in school and not working. It is essential that we create pathways for our most vulnerable students so that they can thrive in our region. Research confirms that quality mentoring relationships have powerful positive effects on youth, on young people in a variety of personal, academic, and professional situations. Ultimately, mentoring connects a young person to personal growth and development and social and economic opportunity. Furthermore, connecting the young people of this county to our beautiful environment will foster a new generation of caretakers to ensure that both current and future environmental issues will be addressed with urgency and scale that they require. So I urge the Board of Supervisors to support item 21. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 8340. 8340.
Good afternoon. This is Lucero Sanchez. I'd like to speak in support of Supervisor Lawson Reamer's board letter amplifying systems of support for youth career readiness and employment, taking into account how this pandemic has disproportionately impacted opportunities for young people. From personal experience, I know how important having resources and opportunities can be. Through opportunities available to me, I was able to find a passion, choose a career in environmental advocacy, and find myself with a head start after graduating college. Now more than ever, it is imperative that young adults are empowered and supported, and additionally, access to green space can improve physical and mental wellness for our youth, which will be a worthwhile investment for the community as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 2776. 2776.
Hi, and good afternoon. My name is Suzanne Hume, and I'm the Educational Director and founder of CleanersForKids.org. We support Agenda Item 21 because participating in meaningful programs is life-changing for youth and sets them up for success. CleanersForKids.org would be pleased to share our resources and collaborate. It is vital that we provide these programs and pathways for career readiness and employment. When youth participate in meaningful programs, it builds their knowledge, abilities, insight, leadership skills, independence, and confidence. Beautiful things happen when youth can see the positive impacts that they create from using their knowledge, skills, time, and talents, and engage in these meaningful projects and opportunities and programs. New habits and skills are built when they plan and process, problem solve, communicate and present ideas, and find ways to overcome roadblocks and challenges. San Diego County has many capable organizations ready to step up and engage. Thank you to Supervisor Vargas and Supervisor Lawson Reamer and Youth Will for bringing this forward. And a shout out to all of the organizations and community members supporting youth. Thank you so much. This is Suzanne Hume, Educational Director and founder of CleanersForKids.org. We're excited to collaborate. Thank you again.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 6789. 6789. Six, 7, 8, 9. Please press star 6 to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hello, yes.
Okay, hi. My name is Patricia, and I am a member of ACE and the Invest in San Diego Families Coalition. I'm calling to urge the Board of Supervisors to support Supervisor Lawson Reamer's board initiative, amplifying systems of support for our youth career readiness and employment, taking into account how this pandemic has disproportionately impacted opportunities for our youth, for our young people. Because as a mother of a 17-year-old daughter who's about to graduate from high school, you know, they've worked so hard and they've missed so much of this year, but this is why I'm speaking. This is an investment with long-term gain. Why? Because these children are our future. This youth is our future. And by providing meaningful workforce experience, our youth are getting the skills needed to pursue other careers or pathways within the country. I would also just like to say that, you know, our kids need us more than ever. And this is this is a step in the right direction. Like I said, I'm a mother of a 17-year-old that has no clue of what to do when she graduates. She wants to do so much, but she hasn't experienced what every other senior had experienced before this pandemic. So I think we really need to help our children out this time, our youth, because we have to remember they're our next generation. They're going to be where we're at in a couple of years. So we want them stronger than ever. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 6631. 6631. Please press *6 to unmute yourself. If we don't hear from you when your number is called, we will come back to you. Our next speaker is 7641. 7641. If not, we will go to 78.
Can you hear me?
There we go. Hello, yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Good afternoon, Chair and County Board of Supervisors. This is Malika Marsden calling with the San Diego Green New Deal Alliance. We are here to support the Youth Environmental/Recreation Corps program, an effort led by one of our member organizations, Youth Will, and Supervisor Lawson Reamer. As our county starts to rebuild from the economic devastation caused by COVID-19, we must build back better. We must build an economy that is more just, sustainable, and inclusive than what we had before. And the Youth Environmental Recreation Corps is exactly the kind of program we need to do that. In the spirit of the original New Deal, let's put young people to work, many of whom have lost their jobs during the pandemic or haven't had opportunities due to the pandemic, and help build out a green economy and a zero carbon future. The future of this county ultimately belongs to young people, so we urge you to listen to their concerns and their solutions, as well as their ideas for the world they want to shape. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 5755. 5755.
Hi, my name is Crystal Irving, and I'm a resident of San Diego County District 4 and a member of SEIU Local 221. I stand with the Invest in San Diego Families Coalition and urge the Board of Supervisors to support Supervisor Lawson Reamer's initiative, Amplifying Systems of Support for Youth Career and Readiness and Employment, because this pandemic has disproportionately impacted opportunities for our young people. In our recovery from COVID, we must ensure that young people have opportunities to thrive and for success. This pandemic has drastically impacted young adults who are more likely to have lost their jobs due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We've already heard the statistic from the San Diego Workforce Partnership that identified 38,000 opportunity youth between the ages of 16 and 21 who are not in school and not working. Prior to the pandemic, it was already difficult for our young people to find work and or have the financial ability to afford school, especially our young people of color. Every young person in our region deserves the opportunity to thrive, mentally, physically, and vocationally, and we must create the pathways for them to do so. We cannot afford not to invest in our young people. Please support this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 6687. 6687.
Hi, my name is Priscilla Willis. I'm a resident of San Diego County, District 4, and a proud member of SEIU Local 221. I stand with the Invest in San Diego Families Coalition and ask the Board of Supervisors to support Supervisor Lawson Reamer's initiative, increasing support for youth career readiness and employment, because this pandemic has disproportionately impacted opportunities for many young people. On March 3rd, 2021, the agenda item 12, the initiative to uplift boys and men of color, passed unanimous. So I'm asking that you, the board members, pass this initiative unanimous. Every young person in our region deserves the right to thrive, and this pandemic has drastically impacted young adults who are more likely than older U.S. residents to have lost their job due to the COVID pandemic. This is an investment with a long-term gain. By providing meaningful workforce experience, our young people are getting the skills needed to pursue other careers or a pathway within the county. I want to thank you, Supervisor Lawson Reamer, for always recognizing the needs of our young, which in the last 30 years have been non-existent. Thank you guys for your time today.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 5302.
5302.
Please. Oh.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes, adelante.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Miriam Goff y soy de Chula Vista de San Diego y soy miembro de ACE.
Good afternoon.
Y la coalición.
Adelante.
No, it's okay.
Okay. Sorry, my name is Miriam Goff and I am from Chula Vista. I'm a member of ACE as well as the ISDF Coalition.
Y la coalición Invest de San Diego Families. Estoy llamando para pedir a la Junta de los Supervisores que apoye la iniciativa de la supervisora Lawson Reamer.
I am calling today to ask that the Board of Supervisors support the initiative put forth by Supervisor Tara Lawson Reamer.
Que amplifique los sistemas de apoyo para la preparación profesional y el empleo de los jóvenes.
On amplifying systems of support for youth career readiness and employment.
Esta pandemia ha afectado drásticamente a los adultos jóvenes, quienes tienen más probabilidades que los mayores adultos de haber perdido su trabajo debido a la pandemia.
This pandemic has affected youth more than adults that are because they are more likely to have lost their jobs due to the pandemic.
El acceso a los espacios verdes mejora el bienestar físico y mental de los jóvenes, al mismo tiempo que les permite construir una conexión más profunda con su comunidad.
Access to green spaces would help with their health as well as connect with their community.
Como mamá de dos teenagers, pido que apoyen a este investment para que mis hijos y muchos de los niños de Chula Vista puedan aprovecharlo. Muchas gracias.
As a mother of two teenagers, I ask for your support on this initiative so that they, along with others, can enjoy the green spaces and the initiative as a whole, especially here in Chula Vista. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 6631. 6631.
Hello, my name is Barbara Pinto. Can you hear me?
Hello, yes, we can hear you.
All right, thank you. My name is Barbara Pinto. I'm a resident of the District 8, and I reside in the Logan Heights area. I'm a member of ACE and a supporter of Invest in San Diego Families Coalition. I'm calling in support of Lawson Reamer's board initiative to amplify, to help our young people with this proposal to support career readiness and employment with more access to outside jobs and more participation in their communities. Helping our young people thrive in teaching them more skills where they can grow and participate better in our environment, I think is a wonderful opportunity. At this time when the COVID-19 challenge has greatly impacted our young people, I feel that this initiative is excellent. I'm a grandmother of 7, 3 being triplets graduating from Otay Ranch High School this year. They have been tremendously affected by the conditions and extremely limited in socialization skills and opportunities to work. They are very interested in community involvement and community service and the betterment of their environment. Job opportunities for them have been extremely limited. They have expressed a lack in interest in working in fast food establishments. They desire to do more to make a difference in their community, as well as expanding their knowledge and contributing to their career planning. This proposal will be a great opportunity to start for them and for many other youth. It affords them the opportunity to social distance, improve community services, career preparation, socialization, healthier lives, and giving something of themselves back for the betterment of their community. Please support Mr. Lawson's Reamer's letter for us to move forward with this proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 1590. 1590.
Good afternoon. My name is Bertha Rodriguez. I'm with Climate Action Campaign, which is a member of the San Diego Community Alliance. Please vote yes on item 21. Youth were more likely to have part-time jobs and were the first to be laid off at the beginning of this pandemic. This past year has been quite difficult for them. Therefore, it is essential that we create pathways for our most vulnerable youth so they can thrive in our region. It's an investment with a long-term gain that supports youth in career readiness to be involved in the community and in climate work. Please vote yes. The youth are our future. Let's invest in them. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 3849. 3849.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Leslie Mathland. I'm an SEIU 221 member, resident of District 4, and a proud librarian with the San Diego County Library System. I stand with the Invest in San Diego Families Coalition and urge the Board of Supervisors to support Supervisor Lawson Reamer's board initiative. This pandemic has drastically impacted young adults who are more likely than older adults to have lost their job due to COVID-19 pandemic. And I can attest, as a volunteer at the library, directly after the 2009 recession, volunteering introduced me to a new career and new opportunities as a new college graduate with no feasible career options at the time. I've now been with the San Diego County Library System for 7 years. I've been able to work at libraries clear across California, and that first opportunity of volunteering did wonders for my career options. So in our recovery from COVID, we must ensure that we are providing our young people with opportunities for success. I support Supervisor Lawson Reamer's board letter and to amplify and invest in systems of support for youth career readiness, and thank Supervisor Vargas for co-sponsoring this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 3083. 3083.
3083.
Hello.
Hello.
¿Sí me escucha?
Sí, adelante.
Sí, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es María Flores.
Good afternoon. My name is Maria Flores.
Y soy miembro de ACE, la coalición Invierta para las Familias de San Diego.
I am a member of ACE as well as the Coalition for Invest in San Diego Families.
Estoy llamando para pedir a la Junta de Supervisores que apoye la iniciativa de la supervisora Lawson Reamer.
I am calling to ask the Board of Supervisors to support the initiative put forth by Supervisor Lawson Reamer.
Que amplifiquen los sistemas de apoyo para la preparación profesional y empleo de los jóvenes.
On amplifying systems of support for youth career readiness and employment.
En nuestra recuperación de COVID debemos asegurarnos de brindarle a nuestros jóvenes oportunidades de éxito.
One of our responsibilities to our youth is to make sure that they have opportunities to be successful.
Ya que por esta pandemia, muchos jóvenes están teniendo problemas drásticamente, cayendo en depresión, teniendo pensamientos suicidas, y por favor les pido, yo tengo un joven que ha pasado por todo esto, que terminó high school, no hay trabajo, no pueden salir, es algo muy triste lo que está pasando con ellos.
During this pandemic, we've seen our youth go through a lot of really drastic things, such as severe depression, suicidal thoughts. And I beg you, I have one of these youth. He finished high school. He doesn't have a job. He can't go out. It's very tough.
Les pido de favor que sí apoyen a que hagan más programas y que los programas sean accesibles, que no sean tan difícil de aplicar o esperar ver que un joven ya está a punto de quitarse la vida para que entonces sí nos den la ayuda que ellos necesitan.
Therefore, I ask that you please create more programs and make them accessible programs, and that they're not as hard to get access to, and that you don't wait until youth is suicidal in order to offer some of the programs that are available.
Por favor, les pido que apoyen a Lawson Reamer para ampliar e invertir en el sistema de apoyo para la preparación profesional y empleo de los jóvenes. Muchas gracias.
Therefore, I ask again for your support for Supervisor Lawson Reamer's Amplifying Systems of Support for Youth Career Readiness and Employment Initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 3640. 3640.
Hello, my name is David Garcias. I'm the president of SEIU Local 221, representing approximately 11,000 county workers. SEIU Local 221 stands with the Invest in San Diego Families Coalition, and we urge the Board of Supervisors to support Supervisor Lawson Reamer and co-sponsor Supervisor Vargas's board letter initiative, Amplifying Systems of Support for Youth Career Readiness and Employment, taking into account how this pandemic has disproportionately impacted opportunities for young people. As you know, many county employees work directly to support our youth population, and our members see the need for extra support and investment in our community. In our recovery from COVID, we must ensure that we're providing our young people with opportunities for success. So please support Supervisor Lawson Reamer's board letter to amplify and invest in systems of support for youth career readiness and employment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 2953. 2953.
Hi, my name is Alexander Hahn, and I'm a volunteer of the Sunrise Movement. I want to just say thank you for bringing this up on the agenda. Youth are basically the backbone of our society. They're basically the future leaders. They're going to be the future council members, the future coaches, the future CEOs of corporations. And we need to be preparing them in a way where they can get ready for this. The youth are really open-minded from what I've seen in the younger generation. They are so open to learning, and we should be teaching them to be the stewards of the environment, not to be exploiting it. Because lately we've been very disconnected with our products and our food, and we need to be coming back to that. On top of that, speaking on for those who live in unhealthy households, I would say school and a job is where many youth can maybe get away from family because it may not be the healthiest place to be. And for me, school was my refuge. And then later, when I got my first internship, that also became my refuge. And I became confident where I could do good work because I was given an opportunity to show what I could do. And so I really strongly support this agenda item, and please pass it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 5715. 5715.
Good afternoon, supervisors. My name is Watson, and I am with Youth Will and the Invest in San Diego Families Coalition. I am also a resident of District 2. I am calling in support of the Youth Environmental Corps. First, I would like to thank Supervisor Lassen Weimer and Nora Vargas for presenting this item. Not only will this item address economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, but it will also introduce young people from low-income families to careers in the growing green economy. As somebody who extremely loves our beautiful parks and green spaces in San Diego, I wish I had more access to green spaces growing up. But in my low-income neighborhood, there were not a lot of opportunities to do that. A support for this item is not only an investment in our future, but it is an investment in our youth today, especially with the impacts of the pandemic. Invest in our community by investing in our youth. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 1436. 1436. Please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Good afternoon, Chair Fletcher and supervisors. My name is Tara Hammond. I'm a District 4 resident and the founder of Hammond Climate Solutions. I also would like to urge you to support Supervisor Lawson Reamer's initiative that would create new opportunities for youth in the region. I'm not going to rehash all the points, some great points made today. Appreciate the consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 6235. 6235. 6235. Please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Hello, board members. My name is Kialmana Cho, and I live in District 3, and I'm a volunteer with San Diego Green New Deal Alliance. As a youth, I know how important it is to be volunteering with various environmental orgs, but it is so important and sad, frankly, that some youth are unable to do this and unable to volunteer their time. Youth in communities of concern have been historically disconnected from green spaces and nature in general. This has several consequences because not only does it negatively affect childhood development, but it prevents youth such as me and such as other youth and my peers from learning more about important issues such as environmental justice, public health, climate change, and more. Thank you so much, and I urge you to support item 21.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 0308. 0308. Please press *6 to unmute yourself. And if we don't hear from you when your number is called, we'll come back to you. 0308. If not, we'll move on. We'll go back to the numbers that we called previously that didn't respond. So we have 9792, 9792, and 9792. You may proceed.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi, my name is Sophia Hajari, and I'm an organizer with the nonprofit organization Youth Will. I'm also a member of the Invest in San Diego Families Coalition and a member of the San Diego Green New Deal Alliance. I want to thank Supervisor Vargas and Lawson Reamer for championing this issue. It's important that we provide opportunities for our low-income youth who have lost so much during this pandemic. Despite growing up in San Diego, I did not appreciate the true beauty of our county. Only once I began working in community organizing did I begin to treasure the aesthetics and the labor of love that their upkeep entails. More young people should have opportunities to improve their community in tandem with building their resumes and having paid work opportunities.
Developing a future workforce of local stewards will beautify our neighborhoods while addressing economic needs. Youth will have access to green spaces and deepen their connection to their communities while gaining valuable skills and work experience in the growing green sector of the economy. As we emerge from this period of isolation and economic downturn, we urge the San Diego County Board of Supervisors to establish a youth environmental corps program that supports youth career readiness and environmental sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you. 0308. 0308. Or
excuse me.
Oh, hello.
My name is Christy, and I'm a member of ACE and the Investment San Diego Families Coalition. And I'm calling to urge the Board of Supervisors to support Lawson Reamer's board initiative because youth disconnection rates actually it rises sharply as youth leave high school and struggle to find work, enroll in, or even afford high school or higher education. So in order to reduce these disconnection rates, it's critical that we support young people with more opportunities during this transition. And it is an investment with a long-term gain. So by providing meaningful workforce experience, our youth are getting the skills needed to pursue those careers and lead them to success. So please support item 21. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 7822. 7822. We also have 9719. 9719.
9719. Tiene que oprimir asterisco 6 para poder hablar.
Listo. ¿Listo?
Hello?
¿Sí? ¿Me escuchas?
Sí, adelante.
Pues que nada, muy buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Javier.
Good afternoon. My name is Javier.
Y soy miembro de ACE, la coalición.
¿Se cortó? Javier, ¿estás ahí?
Estoy aquí, ¿sí me escucha?
Sí, ahora sí, adelante. ¿Eres miembro de ACE y
la coalición en San Diego? Yes.
So good afternoon. My name is Javier. I am a member of ACE as well as the ISDF coalition.
Estoy hablando para pedir a la Junta de Supervisores.
I am calling to ask the Board of Supervisors
que apoyen la iniciativa de la supervisora Lawson
to support the initiative by Supervisor Lawson Reamer
que amplifica los sistemas de apoyo para la preparación profesional y empleo de los jóvenes.
on amplifying systems of support for youth career readiness and employment.
Y por favor les pido que apoyen eso porque yo también tengo un hijo que pues va al college y pues la verdad sí ha sido afectado en esto.
I am calling to really ask for your support on this measure because I also have a child that has been greatly affected during these times.
Y por último, en nuestra recuperación de COVID debemos asegurarnos de brindarles a nuestros jóvenes oportunidades de éxito.
And also, as we are recovering from COVID, we really need to make sure that we're offering our youth opportunities for success.
Por favor, les suplico otra vez a los supervisores que apoyen a Lawson Reamer para ampliar y invertir en sistemas de apoyo para la preparación profesional de nuestros jóvenes, por favor.
Therefore, I again ask you to please support Supervisor Lawson Reamer's efforts on amplifying systems of support for youth career readiness and employment, please.
Y muchas gracias y por favor piensen en nuestros jóvenes.
Thank you very much, and please think about our youth.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 7822. 7822.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Courtney. I am 23 years old and I am a member of the San Diego Democrats for Environmental Action and the San Diego Green New Deal Alliance. I'm also a 2020 grad of San Diego State and a resident of District 3, and I'm calling to speak in favor of the measure. In school, I studied environmental science or environmental sustainability, and I was really fortunate to have mentors, and I had opportunities to get involved in environment and leadership opportunities. But a month before graduation, obviously COVID hit, and myself and many other people that I know, both employed, unemployed, education-oriented or not, but really got plans that were kind of hit. But that means that so many people that can transform our county with new ideas and radical work ethics are out there. And I think this is an amazing plan to address that, but they need the opportunity. So your support would really open a door for capable youth who are ready to learn and use their skills to build a greener economy. And I ask you to vote in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 3583. 3583. Please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Hello, yes.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, there's issues with my mic. So, hello, Board of Supervisors and the San Diego community members. My name is Anaisa Alegria, and I am a member of ACE and also Invest in San Diego's Families Coalition. I am calling in to show my support of Supervisor Lawson Reamer's board initiative to amplify systems of support for youth career readiness and employment. I want to bring up a report done in 2020 by the San Diego Workforce Partnership. This report identifies 38,000 youth between the ages of 16 to 24 who are not in school and not working. So not only will this initiative aid those students transitioning out of high school to the workforce, it will also fund youth enrichment opportunities such as tutoring, sports, and after-school programs. As we have stated in several calls before, and as my previous caller also stated, it's really important to give opportunities to our youth and just help have them more prepared. And likewise, a lot of past calls have been about the safest communities are those with the most resources. It is essential that we create pathways for our most vulnerable students and vulnerable groups. I ask you to please vote in favor of this initiative. There's a lot of positive coming from this, and I really hope y'all vote in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 1939.
1939. ¿Puede oprimir asterisco 6? No, otra vez, asterisco 6. Adelante.
¿Sí me puede escuchar?
Sí, ahora sí, adelante.
Ok, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Rocío Romero y pertenezco a la asociación de ACE y estoy llamando para la coalición Invest en San Diego de las familias y estoy llamando para pedir la Junta de Supervisores que apoye la iniciativa de la supervisora Lawson Reamer. ¿Tengo que parar o digo todo lo que tengo que decir y usted después va a traducir?
No, sí, hasta ahí está bien. Gracias. A ver, un segundito. Good afternoon. My name is Rocio Romero. I'm a member of ACE, and I am calling on behalf of the Coalition of Invest in San Diego Families to ask the Board of Supervisors to support Supervisor Lawson Reamer's initiative.
Sí, que amplifique los sistemas de apoyo para la preparación profesional y el empleo de los jóvenes.
On amplifying systems of support for youth career readiness and employment.
Y déjenme comentarles algo muy personal. Tengo una muchacha de 22 años que desafortunadamente afortunadamente se graduó de asistente de veterinaria y ella se movió para Phoenix, Arizona y fue en febrero, un poquito antes de que empezara la pandemia. Ella no pudo continuar, ella iba a empezar a trabajar allá porque ya llevaba todo listo para empezar a trabajar y seguir estudiando, y todo eso se le paró. Hasta la fecha ella no ha podido regresar a estudiar, ni tampoco puede trabajar en eso. Está trabajando pues en otra cosa, pero ella no está, porque ya le tocaba el segundo año para empezar a practicar, y todo está cerrado.
So let me tell you from personally, I have a 22-year-old who fortunately was studying to be a vet assistant and had received a job offer in Phoenix, Arizona in February, right before the pandemic. But unfortunately, she wasn't able to stay there and hasn't been able to really work in that field or go back to school. She was supposed to go in for her second year in order to get her degree in that field.
Y espero que tengo un muchacho de 17 que se gradúa para este año de high school, y pues que haya más oportunidades, que él pues quiere, bendito Dios, se va a ir derecho a la universidad. Eso esperemos en Dios, y que pues les den más oportunidades de empleo, porque ellos son la juventud, es el que va a seguir el mundo, porque los que ya estamos grandes todavía necesitamos oportunidades, pero ya estamos grandes. Entonces los que ya van, los jóvenes, necesitan más oportunidades. So, que piensen un poquito más en ellos, que los muchachos son el futuro del mañana. Muchas gracias.
And also, you know, I have another one that's about to graduate high school and going directly into the university. And really, I'm grateful for the opportunities, but we really need you to start thinking about more opportunities for our youth, because they're going to need more opportunities for employment and to become the leaders of tomorrow that they need to be. It's not so much that you think about us because we're older now, but the youth, they need more programs, they need more opportunities, and I really ask for you to think of them as the leaders of our future. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes public testimony on this item. Chair Fletcher.
Thank you to all of the speakers who called in on this item. I want to go next to Supervisor Nora Vargas, Vice Chair Vargas, who is the co-author of this measure that has been brought before us. Let her make some comments, then we'll see if there's any questions. Supervisor Vargas.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. And I wanted to say, first and foremost, thank you to everyone that called in today. Muchas gracias a todas las personas que hablaron ahora. Yo sé que muchos hablan español, así que les agradezco mucho. I am very proud to co-docket this item with Supervisor Tara Lawson-Remer. The creation of a County Youth Environmental Recreation Corp to help young people, especially an opportunity for youth in the region to jumpstart their careers amidst this pandemic, is critical. As a board member of the San Diego Workforce Partnership, I'm committed to expanding employment opportunities for our youth. And as you know, at our last board meeting, we unanimously approved our historic Boys and Men of Color initiative that centered workforce access in communities of color. It is clear now more than ever that our youth need investment and prioritization. Youth ages 16 to 24 were hit the hardest with unemployment rates during COVID. And before COVID, youth had little access to opportunities due to the lack of career developing jobs, transportation, and financial barriers. Our economic recovery efforts must address these unique challenges that lie ahead for our county's youth and young adults. And so I believe that it's imperative that we provide accessible opportunities to get young people back on their feet, acquire skills and credentials, and create pathways into stable, sustainable green careers. We need to make sure we're investing in partnerships and systems that will help our young people stay connected to education, training, and job opportunities so they don't continue to bear the brunt of COVID-19's economic consequences. Les quiero dar las gracias a todas las personas una vez más que hablaron para apoyar esta iniciativa. Con mucho orgullo presento esta iniciativa que pues va a crear oportunidades de empleo para nuestros jóvenes de 16 a 24 años en una nueva industria, ¿verdad? La industria de todo lo que es el medio ambiente y que va a darle la oportunidad a las personas jóvenes de tener trabajos en una área pues que muchas veces jóvenes, especialmente de las comunidades de color, no han participado. Así que muchísimas gracias. I do want to thank organizations that have focused on youth development and workforce like Casa Familiar, Youth Will, MAC Project, YMCA, Barrio Logan College Institute, Reality Changers, David Harps Foundation, Urban Corps, Job Corps, and organizations like these. We look forward and working with all of you to develop this program. And so I don't think there was an official motion, so I'd like to go ahead and make the motion to ask our colleagues to support.
Thank you. We've got a motion by Vice Chair Vargas. Is there a second?
And I second the motion by my co-docketeer. So thank you very much, Vice Chair Vargas.
And a second by Supervisor Lawson Reamer. Any comments from any of our colleagues? Seems like a great program and great effort.
I just
for the future is
Supervisor
that
Desmond.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say, I think this is a great program. Hopefully, it'll lead into internships and other opportunities. I spoke with Donna Geary from the San Diego Black Chamber of Commerce, and internships are much needed, as what she was mentioning, for many of the youth. So hopefully, this program can evolve into internships and getting some of the youth and their foot in the door at many of the different industries in San Diego County. So I'll be supporting the item. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson.
I'm fully supportive. I was just questioning, is that a new term that we should be using moving forward, docketeer?
There's only 2 docketeers, though. If you had 3 docketeers, you'd have a Brown Act violation. There you go. All right. We have a motion by our docketeers, by Supervisor Vargas, a second by Supervisor Lawson Reamer. Ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson?
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson Reamer?
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
All right. We're going to move to agenda item number 23, presentation on fiscal year 2021 second quarter operational plan and budget adjustments. We'll turn it over to staff for a presentation.
Before the staff presentation begins, we have one individual who requested to speak on this item. If they can please dial into the conference line now using the instructions provided to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me introduce Ebony Shelton, who'll be giving the presentation today.
Thank you. Chair Fletcher and members of the board, today I'll report on the anticipated budget performance as of the second quarter and the county's financial outlook as we begin to prepare for next year's budget. The first part of this slide that I'm going to highlight for you all is job losses. The overall job losses in our hardest hit sectors grew from 81% to 89% since my last update to you in January. The next part of this slide that I'll highlight is the region's expected loss in gross regional product, depicted at the bottom of this slide. At the beginning of COVID, it was expected that San Diego would lose anywhere from $10 to $15 billion in 2020. However, that number is now expected to be just $7 to $10 billion. As the remaining indicators note, foot traffic is also down by 44% and over 70% and nearly 90% of domestic and international travelers still aren't traveling to San Diego. And when we add in the fact that regional consumer spending, although improved since the onset of the pandemic, is still down by 13%, these factors combined really serve to frustrate our regional economy. Another key metric we use to diagnose the health of the economy is the unemployment rate. On Friday, the California Employment Development Department just released January 2021 unemployment numbers for the state and counties. For January, the unemployment rate in San Diego County was 8.1%. This translates to 122,300 San Diegans out of work and is compared to an 8% rate in December. Let's next review the impact of unemployment on our region, specifically to individual households. Overall, unemployment for the entire region is one thing, but understanding how it impacts the various income groups is also important. This slide shows the change in employment for differing income levels. The line at the top represents those who make over $60,000 per year. The middle line represents income levels between $27,000 and $60,000 per year, and the bottom line shows individuals making below $27,000. Through the end of 2020, you can see that the top income bracket has actually experienced a 2% job gain compared to when the pandemic actually started. The middle income bracket here still has an overall 4% drop in employment, and the lowest income bracket is still suffering a 25% decrease in employment. These low income jobs jobs that pay approximately $15 per hour, were lost at the start of the pandemic, and they have not yet come back. For comparison, the dotted line showed these same categories for the state of California. And as you can see, high wage earners are doing better in San Diego than the rest of the state, but our low wage earners are a little worse off. Now that we know which wage earners have been most impacted by the ongoing pandemic, let's take a look back at the hardest hit sectors, the job losses due to COVID. The blue bars represent the impacts by sector from February through May, with the pink bars capturing data from February through December for comparison purposes. The hardest hit sectors continue to be tourism, education, and retail. And since my last update, tourism, manufacturing, and government have continued to experience job losses, with all other sectors seeing improvements. Some of the hardest hit sectors suffered initially and continue to suffer because people are not visiting their businesses. This slide depicts foot traffic or activity levels by industry. And I'll note that foot traffic to sit-down restaurants, a part of the tourism sector, is still down 56%. With all of that as background, we'll now turn our attention to how the local economy is impacting the county's current year budget performance, and we'll begin by looking at the county's largest and primary operating fund, the general fund. The county is projecting positive results from budget for all funds of $270 million. This includes $87.4 million outside of the general fund, which I will describe in more detail on the next slide. The remaining $182.6 million reflects positive variances in the general fund. And I want to note two things here for you. First, we're projecting $104.5 million in positive variances for general purpose revenue. The majority of this variance can be explained by lower than expected property tax delinquencies, an unanticipated increase in redevelopment pass-through distributions driven by favorable litigation, and better than expected assessed value growth. These amounts have been incorporated into budget development for next year. Second, the Health and Human Services Agency projecting an overall variance of 0. However, the agency is projected to exceed its available appropriations due to resources required to lead the COVID response in T3 efforts. In other words, spending was higher than we expected in response to the pandemic, and staff will return to your board with recommendations to establish appropriations as a part of the COVID-19 financial framework. Variances within the remaining groups include operational savings across the county and in finance other, including amounts appropriated to replenish the general fund reserve. Overall, these amounts adjusted to exclude COVID-19 related spending represents a variance of 1.2% from budget of the total general fund appropriations. Next, we'll discuss variances outside of the general fund, which represent $87.4 million of the second quarter operating results. The primary driver for variances outside the general fund are better than anticipated sales tax receipts in the Proposition 172 Special Revenue Fund. This is a 1/2 cent sales tax that's dedicated for public safety purposes, and is projected to outperform expectations by $41 million. Receipts were expected to decline by $30 million when we built this year's budget, but are now projected to fully recover to last year's budget level. Another significant driver outside of the general fund includes the road fund, which received unanticipated gas tax funding. And also, the internal service funds, while overall are relatively flat, reflect anticipated increases to county unemployment cost. The specific action before your board today includes recommendations to increase the total budget by $15.9 million, including an increase of $4.9 million in the general fund, which reflects new appropriations supported by unassigned general fund balances of $4.8 million, and will provide authority to make other adjustments that do not increase the overall budget. Now, I'd like to briefly transition to discuss how these budget results could potentially influence our financial statements, specifically our balance sheet and unassigned balances. This slide is an updated snapshot of what the general fund unassigned balance could look like at the end of this fiscal year, given everything that we've discussed up to this point, and knowing, of course, that things can change. Let's start with last year's ending unassigned balance of roughly $708 million. Next, we add the projected $182.6 million of positive general fund variances from budget that we just discussed. In other words, these funds are being planned to be used towards next year's budget. We also add $44 million for a known balance sheet adjustment associated with favorable litigation tied to redevelopment dissolution. And next, we subtract mid-year uses, about $49 million, which includes amounts that are recommended for your approval today. And finally, we subtract the amounts that are planned to be included in next year's budget. At the time that the budget was adopted, this amount was $139 million, and we expect that this amount will change as we continue to work to develop the CAO's recommended operational plan. The second quarter budget performance serves as an important indicator as we move into budget development and rebaseline our outlook. We'll begin the final section of my presentation today with a discussion on key expenditure and revenue drivers, specifically retirement costs and general purpose revenues. Starting with the retirement system's annual returns. Retirement costs are a significant driver for our cost structure and will be for the next few years. The long-term earnings assumption, referred to as the assumed rate of return, is currently 7%. And as you can see here from this slide, market performance of the fund has varied greatly from a high of 20% in 2011 to a low of roughly 0.5% in 2016. The average market return for the last 5 and 10 years were 5.3% and 7.5% respectively. And as a result, the assumed rate of return has been adjusted downward over the last several years. For the current fiscal year through January 31st, I'll note that the fund's earnings are at 15.3%, which is good news. The Retirement Board reviews the earnings assumptions and other assumptions every 3 years by policy. And it just so happens to be that 2 days from now, the SD Sarah Board will be discussing the possibility of an out-of-cycle review of their economic assumptions 1 year ahead of schedule. This is not reflected in the projections that I will be sharing with you today. A decision by the SD Sarah Board to lower the assumed rate of return, for example, by 0.25%, would cost the county a minimum of $50 million. Assuming the SD Sarah Board adheres to its current policy of reviewing assumptions triannually, meaning next year, not this year, this slide is what we are projecting for our total cost of retirement. Here we see both the county's historical and projected contributions for pension costs. Current year pension-related costs are estimated to be $708 million and are expected to peak at $947 million by fiscal year 25-26. In prior valuations, SD Sarah adopted changes to their actuarial assumptions, including lowering the assumed rate of the annual investment return to 7%. The cost represented on this slide reflects stability in that rate through 22-23. Again, SD Sarah is scheduled to review their assumptions again next year as a part of their triannual review. Any changes to SD Sarah assumptions at that time will impact the county's fiscal year 23-24 budget. So we are planning for continued reductions to the assumed rate of return down to 6 3/4 starting in fiscal year 23-24, and then to 6.5% in fiscal year 26-27 and over the following years. However, if SD Sarah's board takes action this week to accelerate the earnings assumptions and making changes there or to any other assumptions, it is possible that we could see cost increase come online sooner as early as fiscal year 22-23. So for example, the green bars could move up 1 year. It's important to note that the projections depicted on this slide as it's structured now assume that the fund will meet its earnings target every year and does not account for any other potential changes to economic or demographic assumptions or changes to benefit levels. Moving on to our revenue outlook, we'll focus on the county's historical and projected assessed value, or AV, and its growth rate, which directly influence your board's discretionary revenue source or general purpose revenues. AV, which we call it, is the basis upon which local governments can levy property taxes at a particular rate. And over the last 10 years, the county's property tax base has grown on average by 4.4%. The county assessor, recorder, county clerk, and his staff provide invaluable analytics that enable data-driven monitoring and planning for assessed value growth on a regular basis throughout the year. Although the local residential market has seen increased activities, next year's growth rate is being dampened by the anticipated impact of COVID-19 business closures on commercial property valuations and lower than normal California Consumer Price Index increases. The assessor has recommended a range of growth between 1.5 and 2%, and we are using the top of that range for budget planning purposes. The recommendation is conservative but realistic, considering the uncertainty of the impact of these Proposition 8 value reductions may have on commercial property values. Therefore, my office will continue to work closely with the assessor and his team to monitor the impact of these value reductions throughout the spring. The growth assumption starting in fiscal year 22-23 and beyond is 3%. And with that as context, let's review general purpose revenue projections. We want to take an extended look at this ongoing revenue because this is the only funding source that the board has complete discretion on how to allocate. The vertical bars represented here are projected general purpose revenue, or what we call GPR, and reflect the assessed value assumptions we discussed on the previous slide. But it's important to note that while we may forecast GPR to grow as shown, we also need to compare it to projected expenditures at the current service level to ensure fiscal sustainability. Here, the solid line projected represents projected expenditures tied to general purpose revenues at current service levels. These expenditures are reliant on general purpose revenues, and the line represents the unavoidable cost increases required to sustain service levels over the long term, as well as to address some, but not all, known priorities of the board. The line is largely driven by salary and benefit growth and increases to retirement costs driven by expected drops in the assumed rate of return. You'll note that for all the years, the outlook is and expenditures and revenues are balanced. While in the short term, this year's valuation process poses uncertainty due to the Proposition 8 value reductions. Longer term, it's reasonable and prudent to also evaluate the potential impact of alternative growth scenarios as well as alternative spending scenarios as we plan for implementation of new priorities set forth by your board. Starting with an alternate revenue scenario, the bars above the solid line in the orange illustrate additional general purpose revenue due to an additional 1% in assessed value growth every year, for example, starting in fiscal year 22-23. In contrast, a 1% annual reduction in AV growth would have an inverse impact on revenues. So what if the board implemented $20 million in new programs in fiscal year 21-22? The dotted line represents a hypothetical increase in expenses in fiscal year 21-22 to support one or more new programs totaling $20 million in addition to the current anticipated service levels. However, if the $20 million in new programs were not accompanied by additional growth in revenue, expenses would outpace revenues by $20 million annually. As we look ahead, I expect that the pandemic will continue to drive decisions, but less and less as the vaccine is successfully rolled out and we achieve herd immunity in San Diego. We now have a signed stimulus, which will bolster the economic recovery of our region and the nation as a whole. And I'm hopeful that by the middle or end of the calendar year, many of our residents will begin to feel a return to normal, especially those in the hardest hit sectors and income brackets. There's a real opportunity here, not only because we're in the middle of an economic recovery, but we're also in the midst of a leadership transformation. After 20 plus years of the same board, your new board is moving away from conservatism to fiscal constraint and seeking a framework for serving all residents at every level of county government while operating the county prudently. The direction set forth by your board regarding budget priorities, both short and long term, will enable staff to execute effectively on your behalf to not only fully recover from the effects of the pandemic, but to also bring lasting positive change to our region. In conclusion, county staff continues our year-long response to the COVID-19 pandemic. As a reminder, the board ratified the CAO's action to suspend certain financial provisions of the administrative code. The effect of this action included allowing unassigned fund balance to be drawn below the minimum target and suspending requirements to use debt savings and certain unanticipated revenues to cash fund capital or send voluntary contributions to SD-SARA. These actions remain in effect and will do so until the public health order is lifted and continue to provide necessary financial flexibility as a part of the county's financial first aid toolkit. There are additional strategies that have been deployed in planning for next year's budget, specifically to create capacity to do more with the money that we already have. For the upcoming budget cycle, we've moved away from the traditional approach of allocating incremental general purpose revenue for the cost of doing business increases, such as negotiated salary and benefit increases, forcing departments to implement efficiencies and leverage all available revenue streams. Additionally, in light of economic conditions and continuing recovery of sales tax revenue, which support key public safety and health and human services programs, we will be recommending to your board a revenue stabilization strategy to preserve key services through the prudent use of reserves while allowing time for these revenues to recover. Specific details on these and other strategies will be incorporated into future updates on the budget as we move through the budget development cycle. Subject to your questions, this concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Let me ask the clerk if there's any request for public comment on this item.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Yes, we had one request to speak on this item in favor. That individual has not dialed into the conference line at this time.
All right, let me ask my colleagues if there's any questions. I see Vice Chair Vargas.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. So, I know that we've been, and thank you so much to Ebony and the team for such a thorough process. As a representative in SD-SARA this week, I will be looking at this item very thoroughly and ensuring I represent the county well. But I did want to mention that it is critical that as we're investing in these programs and services, I want to make sure that we're looking at these from an equitable lens. And what I would like to do with that intention, and I'm prepared to support this today, but what I'd like to do is really have us look at using a budget equity tool to help us guide our annual budget process as we're advancing equity in the county of San Diego. And I know we've had this discussion around healthcare equity and what that looks like. We introduced a letter, of course. That was one of the initial conversations, initial initiatives that we took. But I would like us to really think about this as we're making our budget decisions, where we make funding allocations, and really make it based on, guided by the data and metrics that ultimately strives to achieve equity in the county as a whole. So for these budget adjustments, I understand there's a need for additional allocations and transfers made, so I'm prepared to support that. But in the future, I would like us to really look at an equity tool as we're provide, so that we can provide guidance when we're evaluating these kinds of budgetary requests. And so with that, I am happy to make a motion to support the recommendations.
Thank you. We have a motion. I'm happy to second. Let's go to Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ebony and the team. This is really an impressive report and very thorough and very helpful. I think as you noted, we're definitely in a transitional period. And one of the things I'm certainly looking forward to as our fiscal subcommittee gets our recommendations moving forward, and we begin to move towards a more evidence-based policymaking approach, and looking down the line at next year, at how we are able to incorporate data and evidence in terms of what programs are working and not working and impacts in our communities to ensure that our investments are being made in the places where they're going to make the biggest difference. So again, I do thank you for the work and looking forward to, as we continue to evolve the work in our fiscal subcommittee, beginning to implement some of those recommendations in the next fiscal year. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask my colleagues if they have any additional comments or questions. Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Ebony, for a great presentation and for the projections that you kind of put out there as the board makes adjustments of what that means and how that may affect this. But one of the things is, Supervisor Vargas had mentioned equity, moving forward. And, one of your very first slides, the region's job losses, in tourism and education and health and retail, those top three, and this pandemic's had a big impact on those particular industries. So if we are looking towards targeting dollars and towards equity, it'd be nice that these sectors of businesses that were most hardest hit, that those maybe get more attention than others. So I'd like to just bring up that fact that there was a lot of job losses that happened. A lot of people still haven't received a paycheck for almost a year. So thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Desmond. Not seeing any other comments, we have a motion by Vice Chair Vargas, seconded by myself, to adopt the 13 recommendations in agenda item 23. With that, I'll ask the clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson?
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We'll now move to agenda item 25, capital improvement needs assessment for fiscal years 21-22 to 25-26. I'll turn it over to staff for a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ebony's up first on this one, and then Marco Medved and Brian Albright will be joining her in the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a moment, sorry. Okay. Good afternoon again, Chair Fletcher, members of the board. Modern and well-maintained infrastructure is key to our ability to deliver exceptional services to the public and to provide high-quality workplaces for county employees. The Capital Improvement Needs Assessment, or CINA, is the primary tool that is used to plan for the county's projected infrastructure needs and to inform the capital program within the operational plan. The CINA is reviewed and revised annually to ensure alignment with the board's initiatives and county program needs. Now, of course, 3 of you were not present when we started the current CINA process, so we welcome your input on funding priorities and future planning efforts. Today, Marco Medved, the Director of the Department of General Services, and Brian Albright, the Director of the Department of Parks and Recreation, will present the annual CINA process and updates to some of the projects. Marco?
Thank you, Ebony. The CINA is a planning document that includes a comprehensive list of all planned capital projects over a 5-year period. The list of projects on the CINA builds on the board's priorities and supports county program and service delivery. A capital project involves the acquisition, new construction, expansion, or major renovation of a county facility. The resulting capital assets typically have an economic life of 10 to 50 years. The SENA is not a financial document and has no fiscal impact, but is central to the development of the capital program within the operational plan. The SENA process is a continuous and forward-looking cycle with several inputs. The primary inputs are from your board initiatives such as fire protection and community resilience, the behavioral health continuum of care, the Live Well strategy, rehabilitative youth services, and access to parks and open space. Departments and program inputs are referred from our strategic facility plans. These plans identify any gaps between existing facility portfolios and the forecasted program needs, along with a list of capital improvements that can close these gaps. This year's SENA was built on prior year plans and program priorities. Each fall and summer, the capital priorities derived from these sources are then integrated into a draft 5-year plan that gets finalized through a series of reviews with the general managers and their respective departments. The final plan that's brought to your board today typically provides a phased approach that includes a pre-construction phase and a construction phase for each project. During the pre-construction phase, DGS and DPR build upon initial planning with site-specific due diligence and develop a budget quality project estimate. The project then rolls into the construction phase on a subsequent SENA with a refined project estimate. In support of the county's climate action plan, sustainability is woven into all our capital delivery. Capital projects incorporate leadership in energy and environmental design, zero net energy goals, and electric vehicle infrastructure. Preserving existing assets through capital renewal is another form of sustainability. DGS continually monitors the performance and integrity of county-owned structures to determine whether revitalization of the asset makes more sense than replacing with new construction. In summary, the SENA is a planning document that identifies capital projects over a 5-year horizon for development and execution. The SENA we're submitting to you today includes $233 million of new unfunded capital projects that can be referred to the operational plan for funding consideration in the coming fiscal year. The county's anticipated funding needs in fiscal years 21 through 6 are summarized in the SENA's total approximate value of $1.3 billion. The SENA drives a robust county construction program. DGS currently has 14 projects valued at $440 million that are under construction right now. We have some big starts and finishes in this year, 2021, including the Youth Transition Campus, which is a 130,000 square foot facility designed using evidence-based practices to provide a supportive environment and rehabilitative services to youth in custody. Phase 1 will complete in November and includes a 96-bed urban camp. Phase 2 is identified in this SENA for construction funding in 21-22. Our efforts to convert and modernize former volunteer fire stations continues with completions in September through January of fire stations on top of Mount Laguna and Palomar Mountain, and the expansion of our station at Sunshine Summit. The Ohio Street Probation rebuild wraps up this November, and the inmate transfer tunnel, which connects the central jail to the new state courthouse, will complete in May of 22. The Southeastern Live Well Center is in design and break ground this fall. This facility will be a one-stop shop for community services, including behavioral health, public health, restorative justice, and a family resource center. It will also serve as a hub for community meetings, educational opportunities, and workforce training. The county's contract specifies local hiring and subcontracting, including $6 million of participation from the project's 4 local zip codes. The estimated completion is July of 23. We'll also see our first new behavioral health facility roll out in September this year in Oceanside when North Coastal Crisis Stabilization Unit opens. And the San Marcos Fleet Garage remodel will also complete this November. As I mentioned in the overview, projects appearing on the SENA move through a phased implementation process that begins with pre-construction. Work performed during this phase identifies project risk factors and informs the budget quality estimate. Currently, there are 8 projects with an estimated value of almost $300 million in pre-construction. Examples include Otay Mesa Fire Station number 38. This 13,000 square foot fire station will have 4 apparatus bays and will sleep 16 firefighters. The SENA requests partial construction funding for the project, with the remaining funding to come from bond issuance. Completion is projected for July of 23. Pre-construction work on the 3rd Avenue Behavioral Health Facility continues through 21-22. DGS is collaborating with UCSD and Behavioral Health to develop a program for the facility that will become the hub of behavioral health network in San Diego County. Additional pre-construction funding is requested this coming year, and construction funding is identified for 23-24 with completion projected for the summer of 25. Other notable HSSA projects include, currently in pre-construction include the Tri-City Psychiatric Health Facility and the addition of a psychiatric unit to the Edgemore Skilled Nursing Facility. Both projects are anticipated to complete in early 23. A few other projects in pre-construction include a centralized animal shelter located in Santee to better serve the unincorporated area, a new library in Casa de Oro, and expansion of the Julian Library Community Room. There are 5 additional projects on the SENA that move into pre-construction next fiscal year, including the capital renewal of the Hall of Justice, a behavioral health facility in East County, the replacement of the county's health service complex at Rosecrans, a library in El Cajon, and a fire station in Descanso. Previously approved and funded projects that are active but where acquisition is not yet complete include 5 projects valued at $31 million. Today's SENA agenda includes a request for the board to confirm that these projects are still aligned with your goals and priorities. If projects are not approved, appropriations will be redirected to fund the fiscal year 21-22 capital program. A few examples of the previously funded projects include a LiveWell Center at the Ramona Intergenerational Community Center and the Innovative Residential Rehabilitation Program in Escondido, also known as TOSA. I'll now hand the presentation over to Brian to provide an overview of Parks and Recreation's capital program and SENA outlook.
Thanks, Marco. The Parks Capital Program accounts for 75 of the 99 projects in the SENA and about 30% of the overall value of the 5-year plan. To help determine capital needs, Parks uses an equity-based capital investment model that analyzes park access and acreage in each community, the availability and lack of recreation amenities, and sustainability factors that align with Live Well San Diego. We also engage community stakeholder groups to help identify local and regional priorities. The 5-year plan for parks is balanced to ensure we have capacity to complete a large number of projects each year. Where possible, DPR seeks grants to supplement county funding. DPR currently has 15 projects under construction with a total value of over $60 million. These projects include new parks, expansion of existing parks, security improvements, major asset replacements, and sustainability initiatives. Some examples of park projects currently under construction are the restoration of Lindo Lake's East Basin, which is phase 1 of a larger project to restore both basins of the only natural lake in San Diego County and a key part of the San Diego River watershed. Lincoln Acres Park is an expansion of the complex that currently includes a small park, a library, and community center. The project is adding parkland and recreation amenities in an historically underserved area near National City. The Greg Cox Bike Park is the first active recreation project in the larger Otay Valley Regional Park. It will serve primarily residents of Chula Vista and South San Diego. The Don DeSalt Park project is adding a new playground, exercise stations, accessible pathways, and lighting to an existing park in Fallbrook. There are roughly 60 park projects currently in pre-construction, with an estimated value of approximately $150 million. This portfolio includes the creation of new parks and amenities in underserved areas, critical infrastructure enhancements, trail systems for county preserves, and expansion of revenue-generating facilities. Some examples of major park projects currently in pre-construction include 3 new community parks and an expansion of the county's highest use campground. Bonsall Community Park will be the first park in Bonsall and is part of the larger San Luis Rey River Park. It will feature a variety of amenities, including athletic fields, sports courts, picnic areas, skate park and bike park areas, a dog park, and multi-use trails. Alpine Community Park will be the first park in Alpine and will contain similar amenities as well as connections to an adjacent nature preserve. Calavo Park will be a new park in Spring Valley near high-density housing, again, with a variety of recreation amenities. Sweetwater Summit Campground expansion will add 34 campsites and photovoltaic carports to the existing parking area. The improvements will ensure the campground covers 100% of its operating costs. There are 20 parks capital projects currently active and pending contracts, totaling roughly $18 million. This includes the recreation area at Otay Lakes County Park, which will add manufactured climbing boulders to the existing upper portion of the park. This project is currently out to bid and is expected to be complete this summer. Other park projects with contracts pending include the Mount Woodson staging area, photovoltaic improvements at Sweetwater Lane Sports Complex, South Lane Park in Crest, and the Sloan Canyon Trail. I'll now turn it back over to Marco to summarize our SENA recommendations.
Thanks, Brian. As we've outlined, the facility planning process is a collaborative effort, and it can take several years for a project to move through planning and into implementation. The SENA is a critical piece of that process and represents the county's capital investment priorities over the next 5 years. The recommendations before your board are to approve the SENA as drafted and to reaffirm the projects that were previously approved and funded, but which have yet construction or land acquisition contracts awarded. We welcome your direction on the plan now and as we begin the new SENA planning process this summer. This concludes our briefing, subject to your board's questions.
Thank you. Let me ask the clerk of the board if there's any request for public comment on this item.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. There are no requests to speak on this item.
All right, let me go to my colleagues and see if they have any comments or questions on this item.
Well, I have a question, I guess, here. Not necessarily,
yep.
But more of a, I guess, a request. My understanding is the San Luis Rey River Park, it's being built in 2 phases. It's got $13 million this year, or this for 21-22, and then another $13 million in 22-23 for 2 phases of primarily construction of the San Luis Rey Park. What I'm asking is if we can, if my colleagues would indulge me to move that 13 million that's in 22-23 into the 21-22 phase project so that the park can be built in 1 phase. And I've talked to my staff and they've confirmed with the county staff that if we were to build the park in 1 phase, then there'd be about a 10 to 20% savings in efficiency as opposed to building it in 2 phases. So I guess if we build it in 2 phases, then you got to have equipment and personnel and materials all, out there twice if we could do it all at once. So I'm going to asking my colleagues to indulge me for the fact of moving that 13 million from 22-23 into 21-22 so we can build the park all at once.
We can ask the county staff to comment on the feasibility of doing that.
Yeah. I guess that's Parks, Mr. Albright.
Yes, Chair Fletcher and Supervisor Desmond, it is possible to construct the park all in 1 phase. We have the capacity to do it. Again, we would just need the funding from FY 22-23 to be combined with the request that lies before you for FY 21-22.
And is there, just if I can follow, is there savings by doing that? Because that was my understanding is that potentially there's savings if we, instead of having to stage all this twice.
Supervisor Desmond, that's correct. Generally, if you can construct a large facility like that in 1 phase, you will save due just to the time impact of money and avoiding inflationary costs in construction, as well as only having to mobilize and seek permits 1 time.
That would be the only change I'd be requesting, Chairman Fletcher.
Okay. Let's hear from our other colleagues, and then I'll try and encapsulate a motion. Anyone else? All right, so I'll make a motion to adopt the SENA with the change Supervisor Desmond outlined to combine those projects into 1 year out of a desire to save funding and material cost. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
All right. So we've got a second by all 3 of y'all. So we'll go second by Supervisor Vargas. Any additional comments or questions? All right, we'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Thank you. Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas.
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We're going to move to agenda item 27. This is amendments to board policy A93. I'll ask staff if they have any introductory comments on this item.
Mr. Chairman, we don't have any comments to make at this point. Thank you.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation and the action in this item to approve the amendments to Board of Supervisors policy A-93. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion by myself, a second by Supervisor Anderson. Seeing no comments or questions, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Chair Fletcher, we did have one request to speak on this item.
Oh, I missed that.
In favor, I do not see that individual has dialed into the conference line at this time.
All right, well, they will remain in favor and we will call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas.
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
And I do see the individual has just dialed in at this time.
We can go ahead and call them. I don't think it'll change the outcome of the vote, but we'll go ahead and hear their thoughts.
Thank you.
So if 3640, if you can please press *6 to unmute yourself and then state your name for the record, you may proceed.
Hi, yes, my name is David Garcia, I'm president from SEIU Local 221. I'm thrilled to speak in support of the modification of board policy A93. There have already been several items brought forward by a new board that reflects a changing value system in the priorities, and in this case, its policies. For the approximately 11,000 employees that SEIU represents, policy A93 was a symbol of the hypocrisy of the old board members that always said that they valued their workforce and then turned their back when it was time to back up those words with action. Policy A93 was illegal and used as an excuse for board members not to even talk to SEIU members during contract negotiations. So they could put the blame and responsibility on county staff and avoid looking workers in the eye. Today's vote shows that those days are over. Most of the board has expressed opposition, most of this board has expressed opposition to the idea of A93, but I want to state for the record that SEIU filed a charge with the California Public Employment Relations Board, and the Employment Board ruled that this policy was an illegal violation of the free speech of the membership of SEIU. That means that even the old board would have been forced to make this change. We thank you for voting yes on this item, and we look forward to a new era where the Board of Supervisors can work collaboratively to support workers and the important services that we provide. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and that concludes public testimony on this item.
All right, Mr. Clerk, you want to report the results of the vote?
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Yes, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
Go to our final agenda item for today, agenda item 28, amendments to the compensation ordinance. Was brought forward by the CAO. Let me ask staff if they have any comments on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have no comments. This is a second reading of an item we discussed at the last board hearing. It does extend the child care provisions that were in effect with the CARES Act to March the 2nd. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve the two recommendations in agenda item 28. Supervisor Anderson?
I'd like to second it. And if it's appropriate, I'd like to make a remark.
Please.
Thank you. You know, I'm delighted that we're moving forward doing this. It demonstrates a our commitment to our employees and how important they are to all our constituents. And so I think this is really terrific. So I want to thank you all for joining me in voting for this. Although it may be premature, I still am very grateful.
Thank you, Supervisor Anderson. We have a motion by myself, a second by Supervisor Anderson. Not seeing any other requests to speak, I'll ask the clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Before we do that, we do have 3 individuals that have requested to address the board on this item. We have 1 individual so far who has dialed in. We'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board. We'll be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number. You'll hear notification that your call has been unmuted. You will then need to press *6 to unmute your phone. Aaron, if you could please identify the first caller.
Thank you. Our first caller is 3849. 3849.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi, my name is Leslie Maslin from SEIU 221, and I work as a county librarian. I'm calling to thank this Board of Supervisors for supporting the extension of FFCRA so that our members can take care of themselves and their families. As you know, the extension currently expires on March 2nd, but the good news is that we have the opportunity to expand this through the American Rescue Plan. In the coming weeks, this board is going to have some important decisions on spending this money. There are many priorities, and these priorities must include the further extension of the coronavirus leave and approving hazard pay for employees that have been on the front lines during this crisis. We've been staffing the county's COVID T3 response for the past year, risking our lives, health, families, and continuing to provide public services understaffed and overworked as caseloads have skyrocketed. So please vote yes on today's item and support us by voting for hazard pay and FFCRA extensions in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 6687. 6687.
Hello, my name is Drusilla Willis from SEIU Local 221, and I work at the Lemon Grove FRC. I'm calling to thank the Board of Supervisors for supporting the extension of FFCRA so that our members can take care of themselves and their families. As you know, we have the opportunity to extend this through the American Rescue Plan. The Board of Supervisors has some decisions to make, and we are hoping that the extension of the FFCRA and hazard pay is complete. As some San Diego County employees that has had to work from home were told they will receive a telework bundle. But it has been 1 year since this pandemic became a public health crisis, and yet many employees still wait for telebundles. I'm bringing this to your attention because I know the county has been working diligently on providing the tools needed for our success. However, it seems that everything has come to a standstill a year later. The employees have made personal and financial adjustments to meet the needs of the county of San Diego and its residents. Some of the purchases that have been made is internet service, newer phones, because the current cell phones do not connect to the county phone service called NICE, laptops, because you have to have a newer laptop to be able to remote into county sites, and increased utility bills. I am asking that you please take all of these concerns into consideration when you make the decision of hazard pay and its needs, and to help your struggling employees. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next caller is 5755. 5755.
Hello again, this is Crystal Irving. I currently serve as a protective services worker with Child Welfare Services, and I'm a proud member of SEIU Local 221. I do want to start by thanking the Board of Supervisors for supporting the extension of FFCRA so that our members can take care of themselves and their families. As you know, the extension currently expires on March 2nd, but we know that there is an opportunity to expand this through the American Rescue Plan. In the coming weeks, we know that you all will have some important decisions to make on spending, and there are many priorities. But these priorities must include the further extension of the coronavirus leave and approving hazard pay for employees that have been on the front lines during this crisis. My coworkers have been on the front lines of the pandemic for over 1 year, and we have so many stories that paint vivid portraits of our work experiences during the time of historical trauma. They include themes of compassion, fear, dedication to the communities we serve, and unfortunately, lives lost. Hazard pay recognizes our hard work and sacrifice, as well as additional costs for working from home and childcare during this unprecedented crisis. It also advances the goal of racial and economic justice right here in San Diego. Our county cannot run without public workers, and the county must invest in its employees and provide relief for working families during this crisis. We are hopeful that there is light at the end of this long, dark tunnel. But just as the CDC warns us about becoming too complacent about health and safety for our communities, we must not become complacent when it comes to taking care of our workforce and honoring the sacrifices we have made during this traumatic year and the sacrifices we will continue to make. So please vote yes on today's item and support us by voting for hazard pay and the FFCRA extension in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And that concludes public testimony on this item, Chair Fletcher.
Thank you for all of those who called in on this item. And let me ask my colleagues if they have any comments on this. All right, we have a motion by myself, a second by Supervisor Anderson. Ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer. Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Aye.
Thank you. Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas.
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
That concludes the business before the board today. We'll now proceed with adjournments in memory. We have one request to adjourn in memory today from Supervisor Desmond, adjourning in memory of Mr. Robert L. Moore. Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the opportunity here to adjourn this meeting today in memory of Mr. Robert Moore. I'd like to, Mr. Moore was a Montfort Point Marine and an Oceanside resident. Mr. Robert Moore peacefully passed away on February 25th, 2021. Robert was one of the first African-American men to enlist and serve in the United States Marine Corps and spent his 45-year career with the Marines, 25 on active duty, and 20 years as a civil servant. I'm sorry, 45-year career, 25 on active duty and 20 years as a civil servant. Robert trained at a segregated camp, Montfort Point in North Carolina, which was open from 1942 to 1949, when it was decommissioned by President Harry Truman. Robert earned a degree from Palomar College and returned to Camp Pendleton, working as a dietetic technician at the base hospital. In 2011, he was awarded the Congressional Gold Medal, and I was honored to recognize him in 2019 on his 90th birthday and provided him with a proclamation. Today, I express, and the full boards express their gratitude for Robert and the battles he fought, both in combat and against racism. I'm grateful for his heroism, and he will be missed by all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor Desmond. With that, we will move to closed session and see everyone back here tomorrow.
The board will now recess into closed session and consider those matters listed under item 31 on today's agenda. If there are any reportable actions, they will be reported out prior to the start of the planning and land use session of this meeting tomorrow, Wednesday, March 17th, 2021.